Back. And we continue our conversation with the Chief Secretary, Mr. Farley Chavez Augustine, and we are dealing with Tobago matters. Obviously, there are a number of matters. One, Mr. Chief Secretary, that people are saying, and you said, if this self-government matter is not dealt with, and we come to the priority, but you must, before we forget this whole issue of the self-governance, you spoke about the lawmaking power that Tobago need to regulate the marine life and the part that happened, the incident you spoke about, and so on. And so, how soon can that conversation start, and when can we expect our self-governance?
Well, the conversation has started. From day one of the new government, I made no bones that has to be priority number one. I am of the view that Tobago's development trajectory won't really get to where it needs to get to, save and except Tobago has that lawmaking ability. And it must be good law. It can't be bad law. And so the strategy is two-pronged. And I carried a motion to the House some time ago to this effect. It is two-pronged. On one hand, we have currently Act 40 of 1996. And so while we are preparing to go into all of the consultations on what the new bill should look like and so on, we should be exploring fully Act 40 of 1996 and ensure that there are simple, sensible changes to ensure that we have some authority, greater authority, given the current Act. While at the same time, we work with the population of Tobago in having new laws that will be what we require. There are some non-starters for Tobagonians that we insist on from Kamla's 2013 bill all the way to the last one that was brought, is that one, we must have not just definition of Tobago, but we should have legal controls over our maritime space and the super adjacent airspace as part of the arrangement. We insist that every single item that is currently in the 5th schedule must remain as core functions of the THA with expanded legal powers and authority. So there should be no removing of items from the list in the 5th schedule now. Going forward, we should maintain those, and if anything, add on top of that. There are some additional areas that we are looking at now, which is security for one, the matter of concurrence, and the fact that the law should insist that where we don't have lawmaking ability, that there be concurrence with the Tobago House of Assembly before the central government takes a decision that will impact Tobago. So, for example, while the THA, in all the proposals I have seen, will not have leeway over international relations, because you will appreciate that that must be for a country as opposed to a sub-state. There must be concurrence once the matter directly impacts Tobago. Meaning that we shouldn't sit down here and see a Prime Minister go on Barbados and sign off something relating to fishing in Tobago's waters without Tobago giving consent to same. So areas like that must be tidied up and must be part of any legislation, or we will reject it if it's not part of the legislation.
Recently we heard about the idea of a legal office, but just asking, just in terms of like similar to an Attorney General's office, in the THA context, what is the latest with that? Right,
so it's two-pronged. As of January next year, we will have that legal office fully set up, similar to that of an AG office. Right now, what we are working on right now is having a legal desk that will be available to Tobagonians for the purpose of assisting people with land matters. So the Senior State Council, we're pretty advanced with that, and perhaps but in the month of November, that should be rolled out, where we have a permanent fixture where Tobagonians can come, get free legal help. So the monies you will normally pay to a lawyer to administrate for your lands, to get the lands into your name and so on, that legal cost will be all subsumed, because we will have legal officers dedicated towards doing that for Tobagonians. We have been working along with Minister Saddam Hussein and his ministry in ensuring that we we do all the necessaries. I could tell you that at present there are some 80-something lands, portions of lands for private owners in Tobago that they're preparing to issue people their titles and so on based on where they are in the application. There are some 40-something additional that they are now writing to lawyers and to individuals because people have just not returned with the necessary documents to be able to furnish them with the titles. We have to get to the point where Tobagonians start doing proper estate planning and start owning the lands in their names.
Right. Okay.
That's critical for us. So yes, we are working our way towards having a dedicated division of legal affairs, so to speak, that will treat with all legal matters for the THA and for Tobagonians generally. But right now, from November, what we're looking at is helping Tobagonians manage their land asset, because I think that's a priority. And I have the liberty of saying that we're prioritizing even within that, the people that live in Louis D'Or land settlements, in ensuring that they get their titles.
Go ahead, and then I'll come in, because I want to just stay with that land issue.
Yeah.
All right, let me go this immediately. Prior to, well, we are facing now, landlords have to pay
tax,
well, we call it the tax now, because we don't want to say property tax. All right, good. So let's stay there. Prior to this, you would have said to Tobagonians, when the taxes or property taxes was introduced, Tobagonians should not pay because of land title issues.
Correct.
You mentioned it there. I wasn't ready to go there yet, but it's the fact that it came up. So let's
let's go there.
Right.
I want us to go there.
Let's treat it. Listen, the Tobago's culture, we were all raised, most of Tobagonians, on land owned by the grandfather that he paid a filing for. His deed is in his name, the deed. The land is authentic, it's belonging to the George, let's say Peter family.
Right.
The Peter family, grandfather died almost years ago. He had 20 children. And every child has a piece that he gave, he pointed out and said, you live there, you live there, you live there, on this set piece of land. You just said that your administration will take up, you didn't say cutting out, because that's what we want to hear, that Peter, who occupied maybe an acre of the very 20 acres, he is able to cut. Who is paying for the cost to cut out that? Because the surveying is the real matter here. And when does he get his document? Because he's a child. What certificate, what papers he need to provide to the surveyors to say that I am a child? Let's say he and his sister and him not talking, and we have that in the culture. And she might have daddy deed or the grandfather deed. But she don't want him to get, because if somebody want all the land. That's the reality of Tobago. Well, so let's speak to it. How do we cut out the land and give every child who occupies the land so that they could go ahead proudly and pay the tax because it is in their name?
Right, so there are about 3 or 4 different issues there. So let's start with the last of those that you mentioned. The issue of how we subdivide lands.
Good.
For lands to be subdivided, not only must a survey be done, but you have to also have approval for the subdivision.
Who has to give that?
That approval comes from, what's the department? That's a department of lands and the Board of Surveys and so on. That comes out of an office in Trinidad. And to some extent, it includes town and country planning as well. So you see why I've been insistent and why I am heartened by the commitment that over the next couple of months, from the central government, that over the next couple of months, town and country planning will be completely in Tobago's hand. Because that is part of what is required to ensure we have the approvals for subdividing lands. It's not a straight case of you just saying you go over there and build and you go over there and build. Because lands cannot be subdivided under a certain size or acreage. So in other words, you can't give one son 2,000 square feet of land and say that is your portion and think that that will be approved for subdivision. You have to subdivide in a way that will allow the lot sizes to be consistent with what is required for that area. So another thing to consider is that agricultural lands are subdivided in larger holdings than residential or commercial, for example. Because agricultural lands, the state wants you to primarily do agriculture. And it's a waste of time trying to do agriculture if the acreage is too small. So all of those things have to be considered. The reason we're setting up this desk is so we can help families through that process. Surveying is one thing, but there's also enormous legal costs attached to it as well, because you have to pay the lawyer to do the work, to keep doing the running up and down and so on. And if we eliminate that cost from you, it's now cheaper on families.
Yes.
But we must appreciate that there is a responsibility for the Tobago families. We are now in 2025. Families should not be at the point where we're still fighting over land in that way. You drive around this island, you see prime property, good houses abandoned, and every time you ask the question, say, the land they get back canal, right? So that is not government, that is the family. That's one. Number two, there is a business tax on landlords. That's not a property tax. That's different. A property tax is where you pay a tax for the land or the property you own. A business tax is where you pay a tax on the commercial activity that you are running. By law, once you are running a commercial activity...
Commercial. Stick a pin, stick a pin. So let's break, because this is why I think people want to be clear.
Sure.
Is this landlord tax for the fella who built a little downstairs and he renting it out because he helping to pay mortgage in Tobago?
Right.
Or he having a little bread and breakfast carnival time, people come up and they stay by heat.
Right. So
is it commercial or is it residential and commercial across the board?
No, that's a commercial tax we're talking about.
Commercial. And define commercial.
And let me explain.
Right.
So a property tax is where you pay it, you have to pay a tax by virtue of owning the property. Here, the government is saying you're running a business and you should pay a tax for running that business. Here is why. The same man who have rooms that he rent, when rain fall heavy and his place flood out and the roof blows off, he calls steamer. When he calls steamer, I must now put he and his family up for 72 hours, then pay the rent for 6 months, potentially 9 months or more, then help him get some roofing materials, then help him build a retaining wall and drains. Where is that money coming from? That money must come from the taxes you and I pay. That's how we get the money to help him. And so by law, this is by law, if you are running a business by law, you ought to pay tax for the business that you are running. As a matter of fact, by law, you should have separate bank accounts for collecting the proceeds from your business as opposed to your private monies, because there's such a thing called commingling of funds. That has always existed in law. The man who runs the supermarket have to pay a tax. So you go to my penny savers must pay a tax for running the business there as a supermarket. The man who is running the hotel have to pay a tax.
Before Mr. Cox, we want to get to the...
And that's for the commerce, for the business. So, hold on, I want to be clear.
Yes.
Because I see some mischief makers trying to confuse deliberately a property tax and the tax associated with the business of renting.
Okay.
So you're not paying the tax for owning a property. You are paying the tax because you are running a property. And let me add to that. The prior arrangement under PNM was that all of we had to pay a tax based on the rental value of our property, whether you're renting your property or not. So you're just living in a little caboose, you ain't renting to nobody, and you have to pay a tax on the perceived rental value. That no longer exists. Now, if you are a landlord, you are earning money. From those earnings that you have, you are to pay a tax. It's not a property tax, but this is a tax associated with the business that you are running. Once you are running a business, you ought to pay a tax. So that the state can in turn help you in ways I just described.
And just for clarity, effective January 1st, 2026.
Yes.
Would come into the fray. Just because I know we pressed for some time here. I want to get to the priority projects. And I know you said that your executive would meet and deliberate because what was asked was 5.9%. But naturally, the technocrats within the Division of Finance among your team would have to pivot based on the 5%, which you welcome. But just want some clarity in terms of what is stipulated in Act 40 of 1996 with regards to the disbursement of funds. Because I understand, I heard the Secretary for Finance said that you would get 2 months, and then the third month you would get the rest when you're supposed to really get it in advance. Just
Correct.
Clarify exactly that disbursement from central government to the THA.
And I still hold firm on my position, which is that the law says the monies to Tobago should come quarterly, on block, and in advance. Meaning, that 5%, that $5 of every $100, that 3-point-something billion ought to be split 4 ways, and the beginning of every quarter, we get a quarter of that money in advance. What we have been able to press towards, because we inherited a situation where the arrival of the money was very unpredictable. It will come when they feel like, and we push to the point where we at least could get 2 months up front, and before the expiration of those 2 months, we get the third month. The reason for that is we have been expending great sums on an overdraft facility, because when the monies come late, in order to ensure that people get paid on time, we say we can't wait on the money. We just pull the money from the overdraft facility at FCB Bank and we pay. It is FCB's largest overdraft facility in all of its operations globally, meaning that there is no company, no individual with an overdraft facility in FCB's operations in Trinidad and Tobago, outside of Trinidad and Tobago, that has an overdraft facility as large as ours.
Very good.
And it is uncollateralized, which means that every time we use it, the interest is higher, which means that when the money is coming late, we don't get the full power of the dollar, because a lot of it has to now go back in paying off the interest from the overdraft facility.
Wow.
And the government is aware.
But of course, and I'll make no bones, whether it's UNC or PNM, my position remains consistent on that, which is pay us our monies in accordance with the law. All this talk about cash flow issues and so on, that's fine. We are cash flow issues too. Pay us, meaning pay Tobago its monies in accordance with the law. That would allow for that to happen.
Mr. Chief Secretary, we are pressed for time, and we do have other guests and so on. But I want to get 2 of your major projects. Is the secondary school, Scarborough Secondary School, number one priority? Tell us what are the 3 major.
So,
I'll give you 3.
So we are intent in this fiscal quarter of awarding a contract to get Scarborough Secondary started. It must start.
First,
now that we're getting $5 out of every $100, it's more than the $4.37. Priority number 1 for us will be getting the school started. Secondly, we are prioritizing our road infrastructure on the island. Now, granted, I think, and anybody who drive on Tobago roads and Trinidad roads will tell you, by comparison, we have better quality roads. In Trinidad, once you leave those highways, is a whole mess. I don't know what they were doing down there. But notwithstanding, we have had over the last 4 years some significant weather events. That helps with the destruction of the roads. Then, of course, we have the mighty Wassa. Plucky say Wassa mash up the road, Trevor go fix it. The Plucky say in the soca song this season. So we have to fix it, right? Whether Wassa mashed up or not. And yes, we are having our internal quarrels with Wassa, because we are consistent and insistent on saying that Wassa ought to pay for those fixes, because, I mean, you go by around between the Pantent and the bakery in Bell Garden. Every time we fix that road, Wassa coming out to dig it again. Every time. Same spot. And I know every Tobagonian know of areas in Tobago like that. But regardless of who destroyed, we have to find the resources to fix it.
Thirdly, in the interest of
thirdly, we are looking at our community facilities, those in relation to sports and community development. So we purchased, for example, a large estate in Culloden. That's over 140 acres. We purchased that some time ago. We're just wrapping up getting the deed in our hands. One of the things we want to provide for that community there, that Golden Lane community, is access to a playing field. So facilities like that, we after some back and forth with Judy and Judy throw away with projects like the Charlottesville Community Center, that is on stream. As a matter of fact, yesterday they were preparing all of the formwork to get concrete and casting this week. They're at the community center in Charlottesville. So projects like those, the pavilion in Goodwood, those to be completed. So we're prioritizing those community projects because in a situation where the country is grappling with high crime rates, where we had high crime rates last year, calendar year in Tobago, and I must say special thanks to all those in community development, those in national security, because they worked with us in bringing the numbers down. We were at, 24, 25 last year. We are significantly down this year, and we want to keep trending downwards. That requires that we put as priority spend those community-related projects so that we could build more cohesive communities.
The teacher results in December this year, elections, persons naturally would want an update in terms of preparation for elections, teacher elections.
Well, here's the thing. The law allows 2 ways in which the House could be dissolved. The House could be dissolved by the House meeting and agreeing to dissolve the House. I can't dissolve the House. In Trinidad, the Prime Minister dissolves the Parliament whenever she sees fit. She could wake up this morning and decide, that is it. Parliament dissolved back to election if she wants. That's not the case in Tobago. If we are to dissolve before its anniversary in December, then the House must meet and vote to that effect. Or it dissolves for itself naturally on the anniversary in December. Once the House is dissolved, the election must come between 2 and 3 months post the dissolution of the House. Between 2 and 3 months post the dissolution, dissolving of the House. And once it's dissolved, then of course, with consultations with the Chief Secretary, a date will be had for the election. There's some statutory time frame for EBC to work within, between the issuing of the writ for the elections and nominations and so on and so on. Of course, we'll follow the law to a T, but we are approaching that time. We are approaching that time, and you know.
So you're not ready to give the date today?
No, we're not ready to give the date today. What I can tell you though, I mean, we didn't get to the political party side of things. What I can tell you though is that our nomination process closed, and perhaps later today or tomorrow, I will be announcing the people, not the candidates, those who were nominated in varying areas to face screening, to enter the screening process. Let me hasten to say, while we have nominations in all areas, it's not a guarantee that we will pick from those who are now nominated. So we may very well as a party decide in an area or two that we either don't like anybody that was nominated, and that might be a strong word, we love everybody, that we're not confident in anybody that was nominated, or we prefer to go back out. So there is all of that has to happen in the process. So I know there's to be some strong politicking in the coming days, some excitement, where we get to see the separate, you know, we saw another party go through a nomination and screening process previously. You will get to see some real quality coming forward. Just now.
Excellent.
Chalk and cheese.
Wow.
You'll see it in the coming days.
Oh boy, that's a great promise. And Mr. Chief, and Chief, we want to thank you for being here this morning.
Yes.
All the best to you. And there's so much more to talk. And you would visit us at some point in time before the election.
Of
Thank you,
course.
sir. A pleasure, and all the best to you.
Yes.